Step into the intricate world of chess, where brilliance encounters madness. Meet Bobby Fischer, the chess maestro who danced on that razor's edge. It's the height of the Cold War, and the US is desperately looking for a secret weapon against the Soviet juggernaut. In walks Bobby Fischer, a young chess prodigy who would prove to be America's most unlikely hero. The Soviet Union had ruled the chess world championship since forever, and they flaunted it as proof of their intellectual superiority over the West. But in '72, Fischer pulled off the unthinkable. He dethroned Boris Spassky, the reigning Soviet world champion. Some folks say there's never been a chess player quite like Fischer. His games are like a symphony of strategic brilliance, dissected and analyzed to this day. Yet behind those genius moves, there was a darker side to Fischer. His mind was a maze of brilliance and fragility. It was as if he was battling his own demons on the chessboard of life. The world watched in fascination as Fischer's paranoia and delusions played out like a never-ending match in his mind. From the heights of greatness, he tumbled into the abyss of instability, leaving us all in awe and disbelief. But hey, let's not keep all this fascinating knowledge to ourselves. Join our community of curious minds by subscribing right away. When you do, drop us a comment saying, "I subscribe," to let us know you're on board. We'll be thrilled to respond and engage with your questions and suggestions. Together, let's embark on an exciting journey to uncover hidden secrets and untold tales on Becker's casual history. Fischer's genius and, well, his mental disturbance had their roots in his childhood. Born in 1943, he was basically the offspring of brainiacs. His mother, Regina Fischer, was an academic powerhouse, fluent in not one, not two, but 6 languages and holding a PhD in medicine. Now, here's where things get interesting. It's believed that Bobby Fischer was the result of an affair between his mother and a rather notable Jewish-Hungarian scientist named Paul Nemenyi. Nemenyi had even worked alongside Albert Einstein's son, Hans Albert Einstein. Well, here's the kicker. Bobby's mother, Regina, was married to another man named Hans Gerhard Fischer at the time of Bobby's birth. Hans Gerhard Fischer, who had German citizenship, was listed on Bobby Fischer's birth certificate. It's widely believed that while Hans Gerhard Fischer was away during this time, Regina and Nemenyi might have had their own chess match of sorts and conceived Bobby. But here's where things take a fascinating turn. Nemenyi, despite his brilliance, had his fair share of mental health issues. As Fischer's biographer Dr. Joseph Ponterotto puts it, there's some correlation between the neurological functioning in creative genius and in mental illness. Fast forward a bit, and by 1945, Regina and Hans Fischer were no longer an item. Bobby's mother was left to raise both him and his sister Joan all by herself. But here's the thing. Despite all the family drama and intrigue, Fischer's love for chess was unwavering. Growing up in Brooklyn, he started playing the game at the tender age of 6. His natural talent and laser-like focus soon had him entering his first tournament at just 9. And by the time he was 11, he was already a regular at New York's chess clubs. Chess was more than a game to Bobby. It was a calling, a destiny. He was dead set on becoming the world chess champion, and nothing was going to stand in his way. He'd walk into a room with chess players, spot any chess books or magazines, and devour them like he hadn't eaten in a week. He memorized every move, every strategy. The kid was a chess savant. Bobby Fischer didn't just dominate the chess scene in the United States. He conquered it. At the ripe old age of 13, he became the US Junior Chess Champion, and even took on the best in the US Open Chess Championship that same year. But it was his showdown against international master Donald Byrne that truly set him apart. Fischer pulled off a stunning win by sacrificing his queen and mounting an epic assault on Byrne. That victory was hailed as one of the finest on record in the history of chess prodigies. Now that's how you make an entrance, my friends. But Fischer was just getting started. At 14, he became the youngest US champion in history, and at 15, he etched his name in the annals of chess greatness by becoming the youngest chess grandmaster ever. Bobby Fischer, hailed as the best America had to offer in the world of chess, was now on the grand stage, ready to face off against the mightiest chess players from the Soviet Union. And trust me, these Soviets were no slouches. It all began in 1958, when Bobby's mother, always a staunch supporter of her son's dreams, decided to shoot her shot. She wrote a letter to none other than Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev, requesting an invitation for young Fischer to compete in the World Youth and Student Festival. But alas, the invitation arrived a tad too late, and Mama Fischer couldn't quite foot the bill for the trip. But fear not, chess enthusiasts, because Fischer's wish was granted the very next year. And how, you might ask? Well, it's a tale fit for a game show. The producers of the TV show I've Got a Secret handed Bobby Fischer 2 round-trip tickets to Russia, and off he went to the land of the dolls and some seriously formidable chess players. Once in Moscow, Fischer did what he did best. He demanded to be taken to the Central Chess Club, where he squared off against 2 of the USSR's young chess masters, and, well, let's just say, he wiped the board with them. But here's the thing, folks. Bobby Fischer was never one to settle for just beating people his own age. He had his sights set on a grander prize. He wanted to take on none other than the reigning world chess champion, Mikhail Botvinnik. Now, when the Soviets didn't exactly roll out the red carpet for him to face Botvinnik, Fischer lost his cool. In fact, he went full-on berserk mode, publicly attacking the Soviets for denying him what he wanted. Right in front of his hosts, Fischer declared, in his classic no-holds-barred fashion, that he was fed up with these Russian pigs. But wait, there's more. The Soviets intercepted a postcard Fischer had written with the charming message, "I don't like Russian hospitality and the people themselves." Let's just say the Soviets were not impressed, and Fischer's extended visa to the country got a big fat denial stamp. At the tender age of 16, Fischer decided that school was nothing but a distraction. He dropped out of Erasmus High School to devote himself entirely to chess. Anything else just didn't fit into his grand plan. Even his own mother, Regina, packed her bags and moved to Washington, D.C. to pursue medical training, thinking it might be best for both of them. But Fischer, well, he made it abundantly clear how he felt. In an interview a few years later, he candidly said, "She and I just don't see eye to eye together, so I had to get rid of her." Ouch. As time went on, it became clear that the seeds of a troubling persona were starting to emerge in Bobby Fischer's character. His actions and statements were beginning to reveal a darker side. Fischer, in the early 60s, decided it was a good idea to spew some anti-Semitic comments to the press. In a 1962 interview with Harper's Magazine, he boldly declared that there were too many Jews in chess. According to him, they took away the game's class because they didn't dress as nicely as he'd prefer. And he didn't stop there. Fischer believed women had no place in chess clubs, claiming that when they joined, the whole place turned into a madhouse. He even had the audacity to say, "They're all weak, all women. They're stupid compared to men. They shouldn't play chess, you know. They're like beginners. They lose every single game against a man. There isn't a woman player in the world I can't give knight odds to and still beat." Seriously, Bobby, what's wrong with you? Now, during the late 50s to the late 60s, Fischer was racking up the victories, winning 8 US championships, and even achieving the unthinkable, the only perfect score in the history of the tournament, with a dazzling 11-0 record during the 1963-64 season. But here's the thing, as his success grew, so did his ego. And he developed quite the distaste for the Russians and, well, Jews. In 1962, Bobby Fischer dropped a bombshell in an article for Sports Illustrated, titled, "The Russians Have Fixed World Chess." In it, he accused 3 Soviet grandmasters of colluding to draw their games before tournaments, an accusation that was controversial then, but is now widely believed to be true. And what's even more astonishing, Fischer was hell-bent on revenge. 8 years later, he wiped the board with one of those Soviet grandmasters, Tigran Petrosian, and other Soviet players at the USSR versus the rest of the world tournament in 1970. And just to show that lightning could indeed strike twice within a few weeks, Fischer did it again at the unofficial World Championship of Lightning Chess in Herceg Novi, Yugoslavia. But in the midst of all this chess glory, Fischer reportedly had some highly inappropriate moments. He reportedly accosted a Jewish opponent, claiming he was reading a very interesting book. When asked what book it was, Fischer dropped the bombshell, "Mein Kampf." Jesus, Bobby, what on earth was going through your head? Over the following year, Bobby Fischer's chess prowess knew no bounds. He obliterated his international competition, leaving even the confident Soviet grandmaster Mark Taimanov in shock as Fischer defeated him 6-0. This was a staggering upset and marked one of the most devastating losses in chess competition since 1876. During this remarkable winning streak, Fischer's only significant defeat came at the hands of the 36-year-old world champion, Boris Spassky, during the 19th Chess Olympiad in Siegen, Germany. However, Fischer's incredible run over the past year earned him a second chance to take on Spassky. Fischer's relentless victories against players like Petrosian had left the Soviet Union concerned about its chess reputation. Nevertheless, they remained confident in their world champion, Spassky, believing he could triumph over the American Prodigy. This impending chess showdown between Spassky and Fischer took on a symbolism of its own, representing the Cold War's intellectual battle where psychological warfare replaced military conflict. The two nations' greatest minds were set to clash in the 1972 Chess World Championships in Reykjavik, Iceland, where over the chessboard, communism and democracy would vie for supremacy. While Bobby Fischer was eager to humiliate the Soviets on the chessboard, he was equally insistent that the tournament organizers met his demands. It wasn't until the prize pool was increased to a staggering $250,000, equivalent to $1.8 million today, and a persuasive call from none other than Henry Kissinger, that Fischer agreed to participate. To top it off, Fischer insisted on specific conditions, including the removal of the first rows of chairs at the competition, a new chessboard, and changes to the venue's lighting. Remarkably, the organizers acquiesced to his every request. The first game kicked off on July 11, 1972, but Bobby Fischer stumbled right out of the gate. A costly mistake left his bishop cornered, and Boris Spassky seized the win. Fischer placed the blame squarely on the cameras. He claimed he could hear them, and that it disrupted his focus. However, the organizers were not willing to remove the cameras, and in protest, Fischer skipped the second game. With Spassky leading 2-0, Fischer remained resolute. He insisted that the cameras had to go, and he demanded a change of venue, moving the game from the tournament hall to a smaller room, usually reserved for table tennis. After some back and forth, the organizers finally caved to Fischer's demands. From the third game onward, Fischer took control, dominating Spassky and winning 6.5 out of the next 8 games. The turnaround was so astonishing that the Soviets began to entertain conspiracy theories, even considering the possibility of the CIA tampering with Spassky's orange juice. They analyzed chairs, lights, and electromagnetic fields that might interfere with the match. Although Spassky made a comeback in Game 11, Fischer only lost one more game in their 21-match face-off, ultimately securing victory. For the first time in 24 years, someone had managed to defeat the Soviet Union in a World Chess Championship. Fischer's win shattered the image of Soviet chess dominance. In the United States, crowds gathered around televisions in shopfront windows, and even Times Square displayed every move. However, Fischer's glory would be short-lived. After the match, he swiftly boarded a plane home, avoiding speeches, autographs, and millions of dollars in sponsorship offers. He retreated from the public eye, choosing to live as a recluse. When Fischer did resurface, he shocked the world with his hateful and anti-Semitic comments during radio broadcasts from Hungary and the Philippines. He ranted about his disdain for both Jewish people and American values. Over the next 2 decades, Bobby Fischer refused to play a single competitive chess game. In 1975, when asked to defend his world title, he responded with a list of 179 demands, none of which were met. As a result, Fischer was stripped of his title, losing the World Championship without making a single move on the chessboard. In 1992, Bobby Fischer briefly relived his past glory by defeating Spassky in an unofficial rematch held in Yugoslavia. However, his victory came at a cost. Fischer was indicted for violating economic sanctions against Yugoslavia, forcing him to live abroad to avoid arrest upon returning to the United States. During his years in exile, tragedy struck as Fischer's mother and sister passed away, and he couldn't attend their funerals. His life took an even darker turn when, in 2001, he shockingly commended the September 11 terrorist attacks, expressing his desire to see the United States destroyed. This led to his arrest in 2004 for traveling in Japan with a revoked American passport. In 2005, Fischer applied for and was granted Icelandic citizenship, where he would spend his final years in relative obscurity, moving ever closer to the abyss of madness. Speculations arose about Fischer's mental state. Some suggested he had Asperger's syndrome, while others believed he had a personality disorder. It's possible that the seeds of his irrational dissent had been sown in his biological father's genes. Regardless of the cause, Bobby Fischer's decline continued, and he ultimately succumbed to kidney failure in 2008. He passed away in a foreign land, estranged from his home despite his once glorious chess career. He was 64, a number that symbolized the squares on a chessboard, marking the end of a tumultuous life and career. So, what do you think? Was it a chess prodigy's rise and fall, or something deeper that drove Bobby Fischer? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective matters. Before we conclude, have you ever pondered the mysteries of time travel? Get ready to explore the fascinating journey of Ukrainian time traveler Sergei Ponomarenko. Click now to embark on an adventure that will challenge your understanding of reality. Let's dig in.